Comes to the April 5, 2024 meeting of Rotary Club of Beavercreek. Thanks to Charles Curran for greeting. Thanks to Eric Marcus for Ticketmaster and setup duties. Thanks to Pete Bales, Mark Weinstein, and Mike Zwick for the great programs. And thanks to Jim Guntle for taking care of the website. Jenny, would you give us an indication, please? Good later.
Well, good afternoon on this cool day. Could you please join me in prayer? Let us pray together, each one of us according to our own individual beliefs. Let us offer thanks for our food, for blessings for one another, and let us be a source of hope for those in need, and contentment for those who are lonely. Give us gratitude for the opportunity to serve Rotary. Let the feelings of love, kindness, and well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. Amen.
Amen.
Hello. Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, and secretary's report, Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, we're at meeting today. We got one guest, Beth.
I have Lena Hyatt here with me. Lena is from Mount Notre Dame in Cincinnati, and she is job shadowing me today.
Okay. Don Adams, yes, come on down. Just calm down. That's okay. Well, at the end of the week, so thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Good check, make sure it was afternoon. Today is April 5th. It's the 96th day of the year. Can you imagine that? It just seems like yesterday was the 1st of January. It's amazing. So 270 days left in this year. Today we celebrate Bell Bottoms Day, First Contact Day, Go for Broke Day, Gold Star Spouses Day, International Day of Conscience. We should all go to Martin about that one. National Caramel Day, National Dandelion Day. I've not seen a lot of dandelions this year. I don't know, spraying more or whatever, I've not seen a lot of them this year. National Deep Dish Pizza Day, National Flash Drive Day, or Thumb Drive, never done it all like National Raisin and Spice Bar Day, National Walk to Work Day. I don't think I walk, it's a little chilly. And then some of you may not, well, a lot of you may remember these. There's at least one person who's probably never seen one. It's Reader Roadmap Day.
Might be Sunday.
Yeah, because it won't be electronics, so that's probably roadmap. We also celebrate this week the American Crossword Puzzles Week, Golden Rule Week. So we can all learn something about, and it's also National Ink Week. We got the two of them together. That's amazing. Week. International Dark Sky Week. I think that's going to happen on Monday. So, International Pepper Scooper Week. Laugh at Work Week. Is everybody laughing this week? Those of you that work.
What's for?
National Egg Salad Week. It's always celebrated the week after Easter because of all those Easter eggs that were out there, so they have to do something. This one, I'm not sure what it means. National Raw Feeding Week. National Wildlife Week and World Float Week. A few things happened on the state in history. In 1621, the Mayflower sailed from Plymouth, Massachusetts on a return trip to England. And in 1722, Dutch navigator discovered was the first European to discover Easter Island in the Moais, which you know what those are, the big tall statues that they have sitting there. There was at least more, as much of that below ground as there was above, apparently. In 1764, the British Parliament passed the sugar tax on the American colonies. It was the beginning of the end of England. In 1923, the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company started producing the first inflatable tires. In 1962, NASA's Neil Armstrong piloted the X-15 to a height of 54,600 meters. That's a long way up there. In 1965, was the Lamp Day, was celebrated for the first time. Nobody had lamp lamps all the time, or not. I think I still have one somewhere, it just doesn't work anymore. It's all settled at the bottom. And in 1996, John Bobbitt was put under house arrest in Las Vegas. Do I remember who John Bobbitt was? Yeah, that's not anything. It was Lena Bobbitt's husband. She was not a nice lady. And our crew this week, we had a couple of celebrations. David Brandenburg's birthday is April 6th. You didn't know that?
Yeah.
Okay. Gary Sauer was also April 6th. November anniversaries. David Brandenburg, 2 years. And Jack Henderson, 32 years. I got two things to say at this point before I get into the not so good jokes. And there's always a tough, but I thought since I went to Pets here a couple of weeks ago, I put some things in here about Rotary because that seems to be what we're here all about. So 15 key points that explain Rotary, its guiding principles and its mission. It's a foundation of service. Rotary's core purpose is to encourage and foster ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise. Number two, development of acquaintances. Rotary emphasizes development of acquaintances as an opportunity for service. High ethical standards. Rotarians uphold high ethical standards in business and professions. Recognition of all useful occupations. This one, I don't quite understand this one, but I'll probably understand it later. Rotary recognizes the worthiness of all useful occupations. Dignifying occupations. It's very different from useful and dignifying. Application of service items. The ideal of service extends to each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life. An advancement of international understanding. Rotary aims to promote international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world of fellowship, business, and professional individuals. Of course, the four-way test. Back up here. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Number 9 is the avenue of services. Rotary channels its commitment to service through the avenues of service. It's club service, vocational service, community service, international service, and youth service. And Rotary's commitment, Rotary's values, integrity, diversity, service, leadership, and fellowship. And the bottom one here, empowering youth. Rotary recognizes the importance of empowerment of youth through programs like Interact, Youth Leadership, which I think where Shannon is today. So he's running, and Rotary Youth Exchange. And we've had a couple of exchange students here. So on the first day, God created the dog and said, sit all day by the door of your house and bark at anyone who comes to walk past. For this, I will give you a lifespan of 20 years. The dog said, that's a long time to be barking. How about only 10 years and I'll give you another 10 back? And God said, that was good. On the second day, God created the monkey, said, entertain people, do tricks, and make them happy. For this, I will give you a 20-year lifespan. The monkey said, how many tricks for 20 years? That's a pretty long time to perform. How about if I give you back 10? Like the dog did. And God said, that is good. On the third day, God created a cow. It said, You must go into the field with the farmer all day long and suffer under the sun, have calves and give milk to support the farmer's family. For this, I will give you a lifespan of 60 years. The cow said, that's kind of tough life if you want me to live for 60 years. How about 20? And I'll give you the other 40. And God agreed it was good. On the fourth day, God created humans and said, eat, sleep, play, marry, and enjoy your life. For this, I will give you 20 years. But the human said, oh, like 20 years? Could you possibly give me 20? The 40 the cow gave back, and 10 the donkey gave back, and 10 the dog gave back. That makes 80, okay? Okay, God said, you asked for it. So that's why for the first 20 years of your life, we eat, sleep, play, and enjoy ourselves. For the next 40, we slave in the sun to support our family. For the next 10, we do monkey tricks to entertain the grandchildren. And for the last 10, we sit on the front porch and bark at everyone. That's good. That's great. Yeah. We're in the fertilized egg business. Had several hundred pullets and 10 roosters to fertilize the eggs. He kept records and a rooster not perform went into the soup and was replaced. This took a lot of time, so he bought some tiny bells and attached them to the roosters. Each bell had a different tone, so he could tell from the distance which rooster was performing. Now he could sit on the porch and fill out an efficiency report just by listening to the bells. Bert's favorite rooster, Old Butch, was a very fine specimen, but this morning he noticed Old Butch's bell had not rung at all. When he went to investigate, he saw the other roosters were busy chasing bullets. Bells are ringing, but the bullets, hearing the rooster tone, run for cover. To Bert's amazement, Old Butch had a bell in his beak, so he couldn't ring. He'd sneak up on a bullet, do his job, and walk on to the next one. Bert was so proud of Old Butch, he entered him into the Brisbane City show, and he became an overnight sensation among the judges. The result was the judges not only awarded Old Butch Nobel Peace Prize, but they also awarded him the Pulitzer Prize as well. Clearly, Butch was a politician in writing. Who else but a politician could figure out how to win two of the most coveted on our planet and by being invested, sneaking up on unsuspecting populace, experiencing non-working agents. There's this, this is probably something you've all come across. Password incorrect. You're on the computer. Do it again. Password incorrect. Password is incorrect. Click forgot password. Change the password. New password cannot be old password. Also, no wonder should have had that happen to you a few times. Yeah. Funny thought. Yeah. President Lincoln was approached by a woman after a political speech. She said, if you were my husband, I would poison your tea. Lincoln replied, if you were my wife, I would gladly drink it. It was a Polish immigrant who went to an optician for his eye exam. The optician pointed the board with these letters: CZWIXNOSTACZ. Can you read this? Read this. He's my best friend. Jeez. Oh. Here we go, Beth. After becoming very frustrated with the attitude of one of the shopkeepers, the young blonde decided or declared, well then, maybe I'll just go out and catch my own alligators and keep the alligator sheets for free. The shopkeeper replied with a sly smile. Well, little lady, why don't you give it a try? The blonde headed off to the swamp, determined to catch an alligator. Later in the day, the shopkeeper was driving home and spotted the young woman standing waist deep in the murky water, shotgun in hand. He saw a huge 9-foot alligator swimming rapidly toward her. With lightning reflexes, the blonde took aim, shot the creature and hauled it up on a slippery bank. Nearby, there were 7 more dead alligators lying belly up. The shopkeeper watching the mason as the one struggled with the gator, then rolling her eyes, she screamed in frustration. Crap, this one's barefoot too. You know, I need somebody to take my place up here, so if those are gonna get worse and worse, so just keep that in mind. And as always, I like to leave you with a couple of positive quotes. In every day, there are 1,404 minutes. That means you have 1,440 daily opportunities to make a positive impact. And obstacles are those things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. Today's finds, if you've ever worn bell bottoms, that's $1. If you've eaten pizza in the last month, that's $1. If you do crossword puzzles, that's $1. If you've been to the dentist in the last 6 months, that's $1. And if you're not wearing a Rotary cup, that's $1. David? Thank you. Happy bucks.
Thank you, sir. Just got happy bucks.
Put that in my mind.
All right, Elizabeth.
I'm happy to have Lena join me today, and if I can convince her to become a librarian, then I'll throw in another happy bucks.
There'll be inflation between them,
Yeah.
and so you might have to throw in other happy bucks.
I was able to deliver third grade books to Trayvon this morning, and so that was great. They really appreciated the dictionaries and they were excited about it. And also it's kind of cool because I'm a military family member and it's month of the military child, and so I was able to thank the kids in the classrooms for that. And there was one class, I think 30% of the kids were military kids.
Oh, wow.
So it's a huge presence in our community. So month of April is month of the military child. I think the most privileged part.
But that's always a fun task, delivering the books. Other happy bucks.
Which money?
So, does anyone have any announcements?
I'll make one. Check your inboxes, check your spam folders or whatever for your quarterly statement or quarterly bill.
Okay, we also have a Rotary Day of Service announcement.
Rotary Day of Service is the last Saturday of April. If you could join us even for an hour. I believe our district is going to go back to the children's garden and the solar garden that we were at a couple of years ago. Just to do some cleanup. I'll finalize the plans with rebuilding Dayton next week. But if you could, if you're interested in signing up, and if you don't have the email that has that link, contact me and I'll send it to you.
Any other announcements? Okay, Rick, I heard you ask about when you served. Did you see your name on the rotating and when you're a greeter?
Oh, yes,
All right, good deal.
I'm probably missing, but
I'm sure. I have complete faith in you. So now we'll draw our ticket drawing. Remember, the club's half of this drawing goes for the Christmas basket project. For the chance to draw for the Queen of Hearts, the number is 339230.
Well, me, not I. 231.
Yeah, David Bradford,
There you go.
birthday boy, anniversary of membership, the whole deal. That's about to win $6. Pete, if you want to come forward, I appreciate it.
Great job.
Oh, that's it. That's true.
Mike Rose.
Thank you, sir. Hey, dogs.
Well, I'd like to introduce our speaker today. He's coming to us via Zoom. So Steve Fine is the founder and president of the Melanoma Education Foundation. He attended colleges in the Boston area and received his doctorate in chemistry from Northeastern University. He then moved to Pennsylvania, completing a year of postdoctoral research at Lehigh University. And after 5 years as assistant professor of organic chemistry at Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, He moved back to New England where he served in technical and management positions in high-tech chemical companies. In 1989, he started a consulting practice in the technology of high purity chemical manufacturing, concurrently serving for 3 years as vice president of technology at ACSI, a West Coast manufacturer of semiconductor chemicals. Shortly after his son Dan died of melanoma in 1998 at the age of 26, he founded the nonprofit Melanoma Education Foundation. And since 2000, he has devoted full time to the foundation. The primary activity of the foundation has been educating high school and middle school wellness teachers about melanoma and providing them with free online lessons to educate their students about self-detection of melanoma while it's still curable. Prior to the COVID pandemic, over 1,700 schools in all 50 states and Canada were using the lessons, resulting in saved lives of students, teachers, and their loved ones. So please welcome Steve Fine.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. And I'm going to share the screen and bear with me while I boot up the PowerPoint.
Look at Mr. Clemens.
Okay, can you see the title slide? Are you able to see the title slide?
Just you don't know. It's not around the center of you. How do you? We have Bluetooth turned on? I don't know.
So, yeah, he's speaking because Chris Hadley just said he can hear him.
Hey, can you hear me?
Not connecting. That's true.
Yes. Can you hear me?
JBL, click on it.
Can you try again, Steve?
Okay, can you see the title slide? Are you able to hear me?
We can't hear you.
Yes.
Got it fixed.
Okay, and can you see the title slide?
You see the title slide.
The slides went away. The slides were on. Did you stop the share?
There you go.
Yeah. No.
Okay, are we good to go?
It's on his slides.
Yeah, we can see you, not the slides yet. Hang on.
Not the slide.
I'm trying to share it all. Share it, unshare and reshare it again, okay? No, you don't need to do anything on our end. He has to do it on his.
So if you can try sharing your screen again, Dave, or Steve?
Okay,
Okay. Because he was up.
okay, so I had it up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let me try sharing the screen again.
We're getting it. Now start the slides. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, you see.
You're on.
Okay, great. All right, so let me give you an overview. I'll talk very briefly about the history. You've already heard about some of it. Show you some photos of young people who lost their lives to melanoma. Talk about the 3 common skin cancers, focusing on melanoma because it's the most serious of them. Talk about the role of ultraviolet radiation in causing melanoma, and if time permits, be happy to answer questions. So the Melanoma Education Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. We began in the year 2000 officially, unofficially about a year before then. Our focus is early self-detection and prevention of melanoma. And as was mentioned, we have our longest standing program was teaching high school and middle school students and their teachers about melanoma and providing them with free lessons. More recently, we began reaching out to Rotary clubs that were located in Eastern and Atlantic time zones. These are photos of young people who lost their lives to melanoma. They vary in age from 11 years old to 36 years old. My son Dan was 26 when he died of melanoma. Most melanomas are thought of as being diseases of aging, but melanoma is an exception. It can strike at almost any age, from preteen to elderly. There are three common skin cancers: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. The two carcinomas usually don't affect people much under age 40. They're usually not fatal. They mostly occur on chronically sun-exposed areas of the skin, and though they're common throughout the U.S., they're even more common in the Sunbelt states. Melanoma is in a class by itself. You can develop it as young as preteen. If you don't find it early enough, it can be fatal. It can occur anywhere on the skin, even areas that have never been exposed to the sun. And unlike the two carcinomas, the incidence of melanoma in the more northern states is not much different from that in most of the Sunbelt states. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common of all cancers worldwide, and it usually looks like a pink or a flesh-colored nodule. You see a couple of examples here. Often you can see cratering. The good news is they grow slowly and they're almost never fatal. But they can grow faster beneath the skin than above the skin, so you're better off dealing with them sooner rather than waiting. Squamous cell carcinoma is more serious. Usually looks like a dry, scaly red patch that's either bleeds or scabs. You can see one with a scab in this photo. They originate from a precursor lesion called actinic keratosis, which is very common in sun-sensitive individuals. Most actinic keratoses don't go on to become squamous cell carcinoma. The appearance of an actinic keratosis is similar to what you see here, except there's no scab. These tumors usually don't metastasize like melanoma, but if they're located over or close to a vital organ, the tumor may reach into that organ and become much more serious. They usually grow slowly or at a moderate rate, but when they're on the lips, they grow faster. Turning to melanoma, the American Cancer Society expects over 200,000 new cases in the U.S. this year. That makes it more than 5 times as prevalent as new HIV and AIDS infections. The irony of that is that almost every high school student in the country graduates knowing about HIV and AIDS, but relatively few know about melanoma, in spite of the fact that it's much deadlier and that it can affect them while they're young. On average, somebody in the US loses their life to melanoma once every hour, and 25% of new melanoma patients are under age 40. From the mid-20s to the late 20s, melanoma is the most prevalent of all cancers, and in women under 39, it's second only to breast cancer. Some more bad news about it: your vulnerability begins early in life. It doesn't peak like some of the childhood cancers. It continues to increase throughout your life, and the average onset age is 65 years. It can strike no matter how good your physical condition or health is, and no matter what your skin color is. Only 10% of new melanomas involve a family history, the other 90% don't. And usually there aren't any symptoms except the kind you can see until it's too late. Once it gets beyond the skin and into an internal organ, it's very often not curable. With all those dire features, there are 2 big redeeming features. First, it's the easiest of any cancer for you to find by yourself at an early stage. And if you find it early, it's all but guaranteed to be curable. Cure consists of going into a dermatologist's office, getting a shot of Novocaine, having the melanoma removed, and that cures you permanently without any need for chemo or radiation. But the key is for that to work, you have to find it early. There are two kinds of risk factors for melanoma, the kind you're born with and can't do much about, and the controllable kind. Among the inherited risk factors, if you have 50 or more moles, if you have any irregularly shaped or large moles, and the more you have, the greater the risk. If you have sun-sensitive skin, or if you have a family or personal history of any kind of skin cancer. Very few of us don't have at least one of those factors, and many of us have multiple factors. Among the controllable risks, there are three that stand out. If you've had any blistering sunburns under the age of 20, just one doubles your lifetime risk of melanoma. Three or more increases your risk by a factor of 5. If you expose skin that's normally covered to strong sunlight, that's a high risk factor. And that's the kind of exposure that we tend to get in the more northern US states because we're indoors during the cold months of the year, protecting our skin. And then late spring and summer, we're outside in the sun, exposing that skin to strong ultraviolet radiation. The worst thing you can do to give yourself melanoma is to use tanning beds regularly, and I'll speak more about that in a while. In general, the lighter your skin, the greater your lifetime risk of melanoma. It's highest in the white population, about 1 in 38, lowest in the black population, about 1 in 1,000. But anyone can get melanoma, no matter what the color of their skin is. Bob Marley was a reggae singer from Jamaica. He died of melanoma when he was 36. It began under the nail of a big toe, and before anyone knew what was happening, it spread to his brain. He died of melanoma tumors on his brain. More recently, Dr. Matori, who was a breast cancer surgeon at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, died of melanoma when she was 48. It began on her scalp, and it was hidden by her hair until it was too late. About 30% of new melanomas develop from a pre-existing mole. Most of the other 70% just arise out of clear skin. There are two kinds of moles, normal and atypical. Normal moles like these have sharp borders with the surrounding skin, they have uniform color, and they're less than 1/4 of an inch in diameter. Atypical moles usually look different than normal moles. You see two examples here. Flat atypical moles, you often see non-uniform shades or fuzzy borders or irregular shapes. With raised atypical moles like this one, you very often see a fried egg surface. Looks like a little yolk surrounded by a flat fuzzy area. And most atypical moles are more than 1/4 of an inch in diameter. Some more information about moles. The chance of melanoma arising in a normal mole is very small, less than 1 in 3,000. Much higher from an atypical mole, about 1 in 100. They're also more likely to arise from a flat or from a slightly raised mole than from a fully raised mole that you've had for a long time. Moles with hair growing from them are no more likely to develop melanoma than similar moles without hair. What you see here is a simulated progression of an atypical mole into a melanoma. And you can see changes happening during the progression. Change is the key warning sign that a growth on your skin may be a melanoma or other kind of skin cancer. The most common changes are an increase in size, a change in color, a change in shape. And you can see all three of those changes happening during this progression. The change can also be in the surface of the growth, the way it feels to the touch. And the most dangerous change is when there's an increase in thickness anywhere within a growth on your skin. A new molar growth that shows up out of the blue wasn't there 2 weeks ago and seems to be growing. And that's especially true if you don't have many moles or if the new one looks different from those you do have. What you don't want to do is wait for the non-visual warning signs like bleeding or ulceration or itching, because by then you may be compromising your chance of survival. There are two major kinds of melanoma. They're called radial and nodular. Radial melanomas grow two-dimensionally on the surface of the skin at first. They look unusual or ugly, and for that reason, they're very easy to self-detect. In adults, about 80% of new melanomas are radial. Nodular melanomas grow mostly downward beneath the skin. They very often look innocent, and because of that, they're more difficult to self-detect. In younger people, about half of new melanomas are nodular. These are 4 photos of radial melanomas. As I mentioned, their growth is two-dimensional at first. They almost always have 2 or more warning signs called the ABCD signs. A is asymmetry, and it means if you draw an imaginary line through the center of any of these, one half will not be a mirror image reflection of the other half. B is border. The borders of these kinds of melanomas are usually irregular or notched. You can see that in all 4 of these examples. The colors can be multiple, and you see that in this one and that one, or you may see multiple shades, which is apparent in this photo. And the diameters of radial melanomas are usually more than 1/4 of an inch, even in the early stages. Most melanomas, if allowed to continue growing, will eventually enter a very dangerous phase called the vertical invasive growth phase. And that's when the clock starts ticking rapidly on your survival. And what you're looking at here are the surfaces of 3 different vertically growing melanomas. The first one is early stage, second one is intermediate stage, and the third one is late stage. Fortunately, that growth beneath the surface where you can't see it is almost always accompanied by some changes above the surface, either in the form of little bumps like you see here, or nodules, or overall elevation. This one is early stage. These little dark bumps indicate that it's just started vertically growing. That one's probably curable. This one is intermediate stage. Time will tell whether it's curable. And this one was late stage. You see a nodule that large above the surface, it means there's been extensive growth beneath the surface, and that one was fatal. What varies is the time that it takes for that dangerous growth phase to begin, and that depends on the kind of melanoma. For radial melanomas, you generally have between 6 and 12 months from the time it first becomes visible on the skin until it reaches the point of no return. For nodular melanomas, the time can be as short as 3 months. Radial melanomas start in the thin outer layer of the skin, the epidermis, and when they're confined to that layer, they are 100% curable in a short outpatient visit. When they reach the border between the epidermis and the thicker underlying dermis, they're still very highly curable, again in an outpatient setting. As the tumor grows and it reaches the midpoint of the dermis at about 2 millimeters, the prognosis becomes somewhat less certain. And when it reaches the deepest layers of the dermis at about 3 or 4 millimeters, the prognosis is not favorable. There are 2 reasons for that. First, as the tumor grows, it reaches a point where it starts to shed off malignant cells around it. And as it gets deeper into the dermis, there are more and more blood vessels and lymph vessels nearby that can pick up some of those cells and carry them anywhere in the body. These are 4 photos of nodular melanomas. First 2 are early stage. They're probably going to be curable. The third one was a flesh-colored oval-shaped melanoma on an earlobe. It was about 2 millimeters thick, so time will tell whether it's curable. The fourth one was a large nodule on the ankle of a 12-year-old boy, and unfortunately it was fatal. Nodular melanomas usually don't show any of the ABCD warning signs. They usually start from clear skin. They often look innocent, and you may have as little as 3 months to act from the time they first become visible on the skin. They have a different set of warning signs called the EFG signs, and all 3 of them must be there for you to have a possible nodular melanoma. If only 1 or 2 of the signs are present, it's very unlikely that the growth you're looking at is a nodular melanoma. E is elevated. It has to be partly or completely elevated above the surface of the skin. It has to be firm to the touch. If it's flabby, it's most likely just a harmless skin tag, and it has to be growing for at least 2 weeks. Some growths, like a zit, for example, may show up suddenly on your skin, grow for a week or two, and then stop growing. But nodular melanomas are out of control cancers, and once they start growing, they don't stop. About 5 to 10% of new melanomas are never found on the skin at all. They're only found after there's been an internal symptom. And it's believed that's caused by a process called surface regression, in which your immune system is able to successfully destroy melanoma cells at the skin surface, but not always before malignant cells have been released beneath the surface. This photo shows a partly regressed melanoma. The 3 dark areas are where melanoma remains. The middle is where the melanoma has been cured, and it looks like normal skin in that area. It's very rare for a melanoma to actually originate internally, less than 0.2%. Well, now that you know what melanoma looks like, I'm going to give you a short quiz. 3 of the growths that you see in this slide were melanomas, and 3 of them were benign skin growths. If you have a pen, in the next several seconds, jot down the numbers of the ones you think were melanomas. If you don't have a pen, just make a mental note. And while you're thinking, I'm going to play a little tune that I hijacked from Jeopardy. I'm going to show you the ones that were melanomas. They'll be indicated by red arrows, and I think you're going to be surprised by some of these. So numbers 3, 6, and 4 were melanomas. The others were benign skin growths. The only one of those 3 that looks like a melanoma is number 3. It has an irregular shape, uneven color, and it's large. 6 and 4 look much more like benign growths than they do like melanomas. Well, don't feel badly if you missed some of these. This was a trick question. I withheld some important information from you, and that information was what any of these looked like a couple of months before these photos were taken. Appearance alone is not always enough to clue you into the existence of a possible melanoma. You also need to know the history of growths on your skin, and the only way you can get that is to check your skin regularly. We recommend doing it once every month, and shortly I'll show you how you can do that. The one that was most surprising to me was number 4. It was on the big toe of a patient who asked the dermatologist whether it should be removed. The dermatologist said it's got sharp borders with the surrounding skin, it's got uniform color, and it's a little less than 1/4 of an inch in diameter. So keep an eye on it, but if it doesn't change, you don't need to be concerned about it. The patient said, I think it's been getting gradually larger over the past 2 months. I'd feel better if you removed it. So the dermatologist removed it, and a week later, the pathology report came back, and sure enough, it was an early melanoma. That brings up another important point, which is that you need to be your own advocate. If you have a growth on your skin that you're concerned about or suspicious of, never allow anyone or anything to prevent you from having it removed. We have a saying, when in doubt, have it out. And I don't know anyone who ever regretted following that advice, but I know a few people or their next of kin who regretted not following it. Where does melanoma occur on the skin? Well, it can occur anywhere, even areas that have never seen any sun exposure. In white males, the back is the most common location for new melanoma. In white females, the backs of the lower legs. And those are areas that tend to get relatively little exposure during the cold months of the year, much heavier exposure during the late spring and summer. In darker skinned populations, the most common location for new melanoma is the feet, and to a lesser extent, the hands. That kind of melanoma is not caused by sun exposure, and it also affects the white population. So how do you check your skin to see if you have something suspicious on it that needs to be further examined? Well, once you get the hang of it, it's not terribly difficult. It takes about 10 minutes to do a complete head-to-toe self-skin exam. You need 2 mirrors, a large wall mirror in a well-lighted room like your bathroom, and a hand mirror with a long handle. And you hold that hand mirror partly behind your head and neck, and you move it slowly, partly behind your back and your lower body. You do the same thing on both sides of your body, and while you're moving the hand mirror, you look into the wall mirror to see what's being reflected from it. You may also need a hairbrush or dryer to part your hair and check your scalp, and you're going to need a flashlight to illuminate poorly lighted areas of your body. The name of the game is be thorough. There isn't a single square inch on your body where a melanoma cannot develop. If you have a difficult time checking your back and scalp, get a family member, a partner, or a close friend to help out. It's especially important to check your scalp, and if you have a lot of hair, that can be a nuisance. So I got rid of mine. The good news is you only need to do this 10-minute check once every month. But people who do it don't die from melanoma. So it's free insurance for something that could easily save your life. Well, now what do you do if you find something suspicious during your self-exam? Well, you want to get to a dermatologist. If your insurance requires you to see a primary care doctor first, make sure you insist on a referral to a dermatologist. That's because most primary care doctors have little or no dermatology training in medical school. Right now, you probably know more about early self-detection of melanoma than most primary care doctors. Dermatologists are often booked up months in advance. If the receptionist tells you they can't get you in for a few months, make sure you let them know if you have a growth that looks like a melanoma. We have many photos on our website at skincheck.org. If you have a growth that's been changing noticeably for more than 2 weeks, or if you have a close family history of melanoma. If the receptionist knows one or more of those 3 points, they'll usually do their best to get you in more quickly. Now that you know what melanoma is and how to recognize it, I'd like to discuss the role of ultraviolet radiation in causing melanoma. The sun releases a wide spectrum of radiation, and it can be categorized according to energy. On the low energy side of the spectrum is infrared radiation. When you feel the warmth of the sun, it's due to infrared, and that doesn't harm you. When you see the colors around you, it's due to visible radiation, and obviously that doesn't harm you either. As you move toward the higher energy end of the spectrum, the next kind of radiation is ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B, and they are definitely harmful. If you go even further, you have high energy ultraviolet C and X radiation. Fortunately, that radiation is absorbed by the atmosphere and doesn't reach the surface of the Earth. There are 2 kinds of ultraviolet radiation that reach the surface of the Earth, and both of them increase your risk of melanoma and other skin cancers. The first is ultraviolet B or UVB, and it burns the skin. When you buy a sunscreen, the SPF rating refers to how well it protects your skin from UVB if the sunscreen is properly applied. That's a big if, by the way. UVA doesn't burn your skin, but it penetrates more deeply into it, and it can cause DNA changes within the genes of the cells of your skin. You get primarily UVB radiation from the sun and primarily UVA radiation from tanning lamps, but both sources emit both kinds of radiation. The worst thing you can do to give yourself melanoma is to use tanning beds regularly. And that's because that deep penetrating UVA radiation from tanning lamps is more than 10 times stronger than it would be from the same time in the sun. If you're under 35, every time you use a tanning bed, you're increasing your lifetime melanoma risk by 22%. And if you're under 30 and you use them 10 times or more in a year, you're increasing your risk 8 times. Well, what do you do if you want to get a natural looking tan, but without risking skin cancer? There's only one option, and that's to use a sunless tanner. The sunless tanners have dyes in them that are only absorbed by dead skin cells. And we all have a layer of dead skin cells on the outer edge of our skin, and we shed them off every week or 10 days or so. You can't hurt or kill anything that's already dead. and these dyes are not absorbed by living cells. Two options for getting a sunless tan. The most effective, but also time-consuming option is to buy an over-the-counter product and apply it yourself. If you're in a hurry, you can try using a spray booth. Now, many people will tell you that using a sunless tanner often results in an unnatural orange color. That's only true if you choose too dark a tanner for your skin. The trick is to choose a tanner that's just a little darker than your normal skin color and build up your tan gradually over a few applications rather than trying to do it all at once with a dark tanner. There's a very good nonprofit site called sunless.com that has great information about sunless tanners. It asks you questions about your skin, and based on your answers, it recommends specific products that it thinks may be effective for you. These photos show a type, what we call these photos show a young lady who has what we call type 1 skin. Very white, pale skin, never tans, burns on even slight exposure to sunlight. The bottom photo shows what she looks like after a few self-tanning applications. So how do you protect yourself from the sun? Not a good idea to depend on sunscreen alone. When you choose one, look for one that's labeled broad spectrum, because that has ingredients in it that will protect you against both UVA and UVB. If you're confused by reading the ingredients in a sunscreen label, you can't go wrong by finding one that has zinc oxide in it. Zinc oxide is a very good broad spectrum protectant. We recommend using a sunblock stick on the most exposed parts of your face, which are your nose, your lower lips, your upper cheeks, and the tops of your ears. The ingredients in a sunblock stick won't run into your eyes or mouth like a liquid sunscreen may sometimes do. Good idea to combine the use of sunscreen with protective clothing. And the best sun protective clothing has a label on it that says UPF 50. UPF is the same as SPF, except it only applies to fabric, not to sunscreen. So if you're wearing a UPF 50 fabric or clothing, you're getting the equivalent of an SPF 50 protection. And it's much more effective than sunscreen because, as we'll see shortly, the SPF can vary greatly depending upon how well you apply the sunscreen. A hat with a wide brim that goes all the way around is a good idea because that way you're protecting your ears and your neck as well as your forehead, and sunglasses that are labeled 100% UV protection. Not a good idea to be in direct sunlight between the peak hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. when intensity is the greatest and damage to your skin is also the greatest. And you also need to protect yourself against reflected sunlight because you can be under a beach umbrella or in the shade, and sunlight reflecting off of light surfaces like these and then onto your skin can result in very significant damage to your skin. Also, UVA radiation can penetrate clouds to a much greater extent than visible light does, so you need to use sun protection even on a cloudy day. And also cold weather doesn't protect you. So how do you apply sunscreen? Unfortunately, the SPF rating of a sunscreen is far less important than how heavily you apply it, and very few people apply it heavily enough. Most of us apply a quarter to a half the amount needed to get the rated SPF. If you have a 100 sunscreen and you own SPF 100 sunscreen, you only apply a quarter of the amount. The real SPF you're getting is only 3.1. If you apply half the amount, it's the square root of 100, which is 10. At a quarter amount, it's the fourth root of 100, which is around 3. Now what I'd like you to do is pretend you're in a swimsuit out in the sun. And now hold out one of your hands, cup it as deeply and tightly as you possibly can. If you can do that now, go ahead and do it. Now pretend you're filling that cupped hand with a liquid sunscreen until it's just ready to overflow. That's the amount of sunscreen you need to apply initially, and need to reapply that same amount at least once every 2 hours, anytime after you dry yourself with a towel, whenever you come out of the water, and whenever you're sweating heavily. So the average adult in a swimsuit in the sun for a whole day should go through a 6-ounce container of sunscreen by themselves during that day. And I'll bet none of you use that much or know anyone who does. And if that's the case, welcome to most of the remaining population, because we're deceiving ourselves into thinking we're getting much more protection from sunscreen than what we're really getting. The final slide is about vitamin D. It's an essential vitamin, and you probably know that one way of getting it is to expose your skin to sunlight. That's not the only way of getting it. Vitamin D begins with a natural chemical called dehydrocholesterol, which is present in the skin of humans and all other warm-blooded mammals. When dehydrocholesterol is exposed to UVB radiation, it's converted into vitamin D3. And that's exactly the same vitamin D3 that you get by taking a vitamin D3 supplement. So you don't need sunlight in order to get adequate amounts of vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is not vitamin D, it's a precursor. And in the liver, it's converted into hydroxyvitamin D3. And then in the kidneys, that's converted into dihydroxyvitamin D3. And that's what vitamin D is. It's dihydroxyvitamin D3. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if we have time, I invite you to ask questions.
We can take a couple of questions. So, who has one? Oh, wow. Talking that. It's a help.
Okay, I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time hearing you. If you could get closer to the microphone, that would help.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah. Still a little soft, but go ahead.
Can be removed with liquid nitrogen that most dermatologists use, or do they have to cut it out?
Yeah, melanomas are best removed by surgical excision rather than by liquid nitrogen or some other way. And that way they will get the whole melanoma out if it is a melanoma. If they use a shave biopsy or some other form, they may not be able to get an accurate diagnosis. Whereas if they use surgical excision, they will get an accurate diagnosis.
And Steve, where can we reach you by email or other contact if you have specific questions?
Okay, so it's steve_fine@comcast.net. And also, I'll send you an email that has links to a previous presentation that has most of the content of this one. It was converted into a video. It'll also have links to our 2 websites and to a high school student video, a middle school student video. And you're welcome to share any of that with anyone who you think may be interested.
Well, thank you so much. And on your behalf, it has become our custom. We'll donate a book with your name inside of it to our community library. And we thank you for sharing your information with us today.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the good work that your club is doing, and I wish you continued success with your mission. So take care
All
now.
right, thanks so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
So if you'll all rise for the pledge, next week's meeting, we're having our exchange student describe the exchange student experience. And the greeters are Alex Zahariath and Ryan Rushing. Keep an eye on our website and Facebook for any upcoming events. And if nobody has anything else for the good of the club, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for.
Everybody have a wonderful week.
All right.
Watch the eclipse. Be careful with that. If I'm driving, see you. Bodies. It's huge here. Hundreds. We're still one.
Funny to see it all. It's in there. The pork body bushel, what it looks like or something. And I think we need to fix the running, you know what, and so I'm looking back at your living here, I can first sure, let's say it's a weird. So that gets, but sure. Yeah. Sorry. I think that's the hand here. I'm not lovely, right? Yeah. So think words, we but so it's you out there, there at least a leeway, but also we want our hard old bills, things that they could stop. Here, I'm gonna get all that service. Do know, or that work, it's so, and I don't, and there's a it's right away, something bad, and so we are, so it's like, hold on, follow, okay, now, so stay on, he's taking over the law, guys, so tell horse, and such, my regrets, I know. So you got some, well, I should be, thanks, so. Hey,